Okay, we are starting lesson 3.6, writing linear equations, and we're going to start off with writing them in point-slope form. So you need to be on page 222. If you aren't, pause the video and get there. Okay, here is point-slope form. This equation, y minus y1 equals m times, in parentheses, x minus x1. The reason why it's called point-slope form is because you need a point, you need an ordered pair, which is always written x1, y1. So you're going to take your ordered pair, any point that lands on your line or whatever point you're given, and you're going to put the first number is your x1, you're going to put that in that position, and the second number is your y1, you're going to put it in that position right there. It's called point-slope form because you need a point and the slope goes in place of m to plug it into point-slope form. You need a point and a slope to use point-slope form. Okay, so let's take a look at example number 1. Okay, number 1 says, write an equation in point-slope form for the line that passes through this point, negative 2, 3, with a slope of 4. Okay, point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m, your slope, times x minus x1. This is point-slope form. So remember, it's called point-slope form because you need a point and a slope. So what you're going to do is you're going to plug your point and your slope into their spots. So this is, remember, x1, y1. This order pair is x1, y1, and the slope of 4 is your m. So this comes first. This is going to stay y minus, and then y1 happens to be 3. You're going to plug in 3 there. Equals your slope of m, so you're going to place your 4 there in place of the slope, times x minus, this stays, this is constant, and then your x1 happens to be negative 2. Now all you need to do is fix any double negatives you have. So that's this right here. This is going to become positive. So y minus 3 equals 4 times x plus 2. And that is point-slope form. You're going to leave it just like that. This is your final answer. Any double negatives that you come across, just fix and make them positive. Okay, now the second, let me turn it this way. This number 2 says write the slope-intercept form of the equation from example 1. So this is what we ended up with point-slope form. This is point-slope form, so I'm going to write that. Y minus 3 equals 4 times x plus 2. So if it says point-slope form, I'm going to leave it in this. But if it says slope-intercept form, that means I'm now going to solve this equation. So the first step to solve equations in point-slope form is do distributive property. Take the 4 and multiply it by each one of these. So this is going to stay y minus 3. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times a positive 2 is positive 8. And then your last step after you distribute is to move this 3 to the other side. And we're going to combine it with this number because these two are like terms. So y equals 4x plus 11. This is now slope-intercept form. This is point-slope form. And after I solve it, I have slope-intercept form. Okay, let's try problem A at the very bottom. Okay, this says, you do this with me in your book, write an equation in point-slope form and slope-intercept form for the line that passes through this point and has this slope. Okay, so we have a point and a slope. We're going to start off with point-slope form. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. If you have a point and a slope, start off with point-slope form. Okay, so now let's plug in our point and our slope into their spots. So remember, your point is x1, y1. So we're going to plug in negative 1 for the x1 and 2 for the y1. So we're going to write y minus 2, and our slope is negative 1/2. And we're going to write x minus, because that's the formula, those are constant, and x1 happens to be negative 1. And the only thing left to do down here is write y minus 2 and then fix this double negative right here. equals negative a half times x plus 1. Okay, this is my first answer in point slope form. This is point slope form. Now I'm going to take this equation now because it says write it in slope-intercept form also, and I'm going to solve it and put it in slope-intercept form. So let me write it right up here. Y minus 2 equals negative a half times x plus 1. So now I'm going to take this equation and solve. I'm going to first do distributive property. So I have y minus 2 equals negative a half times x is negative a half x. Negative a half times 1 would be negative a half. Now I'm going to add 2 to the other side. So my final answer in slope-intercept form is y equals negative a half x. And now I need to combine these. So since the signs are different, I'm going to subtract and use the sign of the bigger number. So 2 take away a half is 1 1/2, and 2 is bigger. So it's positive 1 1/2. And there is my answer in slope-intercept form. So I have point slope form, and then I solved it and wrote it in the slope-intercept form. Okay, let's try one more. Let's try an ordered pair of 2, 5 and a slope of 4. Okay, so I want to write it in point slope form and then solve it to slope-intercept form. So point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So this is my x1, y1. So I'm going to write y minus 5 equals my slope of 4 times x minus my x1, which is 2. Okay, and I don't have any double negatives to fix, so this is my answer in point slope form. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to solve it and write it in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to write my equation. And the first thing I do to solve this is distributive property. So I'm going to bring down the y minus 5. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And then my last step to get this y by itself, I'm going to move the 5 over to the other side and combine it with this. Y equals 4x minus 3. I'm going to subtract and use sign the bigger number. So I wrote my equation in point slope form, and then I solved it, and now it is slope-intercept form. All right, we will practice more tomorrow.